All right, go ahead and roll for perception.
I got a 13.
Hey, that's pretty good. With that, you can tell there's some fantasy situations going on. You hear some adult language, and with that, you can tell this podcast probably isn't for kids.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Dungeoncast. I'm Will.
And I'm Brian.
This is the podcast where we talk about everything Dungeons and Dragons, from vexing vandals to vilified vixens. And today, we're talking about homebrew.
Prepare yourselves. I cast Fireball. The Dungeoncast.
Okay, Brian.
What up?
Today we're going to break some rules.
We're not making beer?
What? Oh God, no, we're not homebrewing beer. Although that'd be nice too. That fucking sounds amazing to me. No, we're gonna be talking about reflavoring and homebrew, which basically is going outside of the boundaries of the books and making up our own shit. So
That's my favorite.
Yeah, it's fun, and I think it's a backbone of what makes Dungeons and Dragons what it is. For this episode, I usually do notes for my episodes. You know that. I think the audience knows that. And I did do notes for this episode, but because of the nature of the subject and because it's not like I got a bunch of lore I got to talk about or whatnot, I figured we'll just talk about it. Like I do have notes, and I'll pull subjects if the conversation lulls, but I think we could just talk about reflavoring and homebrew and what we do as DMs, what we've seen.
I think between the two of us, we've got enough experience in those departments to carry the conversation.
Yeah, I think so. And I think we'll talk about reflavoring or reskinning, depending on how you want to call it. It's the same thing. We'll talk about that first, and then we'll get into the homebrew because one is a lot easier and I think more intuitive than the other. But one thing I want to talk about before we get into reflavor and homebrew is it was only because I read an interesting post. It was on Reddit actually. Decrying homebrew, specifically reflavoring a little bit, mostly homebrew. And I didn't agree with this post at all, but I thought it was interesting and it's a totally valid opinion. And I never really thought about it like this because the person basically said like, why is just ignoring the rules and doing whatever you want so encouraged in Dungeons and Dragons or tabletop games in general?
Right.
We don't do that in other games, generally speaking. I mean, everyone homebrews Monopoly, but people who are doing that are doing it wrong anyways because Monopoly is supposed to be a game of, it's a war of attrition and like resources are supposed to be scarce, so you can't have a fucking lottery in that free parking space.
Yeah.
But that's a different conversation. Sorry. So yeah, we don't really do that in other games in
video games, you can't.
In video games, you can't.
Some of the mechanics are just locked down in some games. They're not meant to do this reflavor.
Absolutely. That's absolutely true. But this person also said, like, isn't it a little not just arrogant, but isn't it also a little disrespectful to the people who spend years and years crafting the mechanics to balance this game, and then we just go and ignore it? And again, like I said, I don't agree with this, but I thought it was interesting, and I never even thought about it like that. And here's the thing: I don't think it's disrespectful in any way, and I think that it's not arrogant either.
Well, don't we? I know that we've had like explicit permission to do such from the creators, right?
True,
yeah.
But it hasn't always been like that. Like 4th edition, I think homebrew was super kind of discouraged, and there's a lot of reasons for that.
Yeah, I can see why. It's very video game-esque where you don't want to break the mechanics because they're so well thought out and balanced.
That is true. But it's kind of like the chicken and the egg in that scenario. It's like, which came first, like something that was difficult to homebrew called 4E, or did they make 4E difficult to homebrew? Okay. And I think they made 4E difficult to homebrew because of what happened with 3.5. So with 3.5, they open sourced it. I don't know if you know that, but 3.5 was open source.
I've heard that.
And it was actually, there was a whole bunch of third-party content creators.
Okay.
And homebrew was rampant and it was awesome. People loved it. But because they open sourced it, they gave birth to their greatest nemesis and competitor, Pathfinder. Which basically took 3.5 and made it better. And 4E didn't do so well, and Pathfinder did amazingly well. So
the numbers are really big in Pathfinder, right? Like in 4E?
Yeah, just like 4E, just like 3.5. The numbers get big. There's a lot of power creep. There's, a lot of the same issues. But the point of all this is that, like, after that happened, Wizards of the Coast got really protective of their baby, if you will, and they weren't a big fan of like third-party stuff and whatnot. So I think Homebrew was a little bit discouraged at that time. But now, as you said, it's very explicitly encouraged. Yeah, it's in the DMG. It teaches you how to homebrew shit if you want to. It encourages it greatly, and I think that homebrew just makes sense because if you think about it, like where the DM's already automatically homebrewing a world.
Yeah, I'm creatively building a campaign.
Exactly.
So, like I'm already in the realm that I've already got one foot in the door for homebrew.
Absolutely. I mean, this game is, and we call it a game, but it's this creative process. It's almost like an art form. And, when the rules are here to help us start creating, but once we get going, we get going. And
yeah, we have a basics for physics in this world and things like that. And like what the numbers, like we're rolling off of a D20 and what that means relevant to like what the stats are.
Right. And just to kind of wrap up this whole conversation, then we can dive into actual reflavoring is, Gary Gygax, who was one of the two creators of this game and probably the main creator, I would say, of D&D, has a very famous quote. And I think it speaks to homebrew and reflavor very strongly. And he said this, and it is said that he said this in a business meeting, in one of his private business meetings as they're developing like more D&D content for their customers. And the quote is, "The secret we should never let game masters know is that they don't need any rules." And it's because like if they realize that they could just make whatever they want, they won't buy our stuff.
Yeah.
But honestly, what he's saying is like homebrew is not just allowed. Like that is the heart of this game.
I mean, essentially they're building these mechanics in like a homebrew-esque way.
Exactly.
Like it's the same process.
Now, I will say this, like on the subject of, is it arrogant to just homebrew shit and ignore like the years of work these content creators put into balancing the game? Maybe I wouldn't call it arrogance, but it is dangerous. And like I always say like always try reflavoring first, and then if you're really not getting what you want, then go to homebrew, because people did spend a lot of time. So like whatever you make probably isn't going to be as mechanically sound.
Yeah, I mean these are professionals, and we're playing D&D. We obviously like the product.
Exactly.
We like D&D. That's right. Why like these rules are good for us, and we enjoy them. So that's why we use them. And like, oh, maybe I don't want this creature to be like this image. Maybe I just want it to look like this.
Right.
You know, that's easy enough to do.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, just going forward, like that's my take on this whole thing. So cool. Reflavoring. Basically, what is reflavoring? Reflavoring to me is you're changing the fluff of a monster, an item, maybe even a mechanic. I would think for me, a lot of times it's a mechanic that I'm refluffing.
Yeah, like a tweak or a total scrape of one aspect of the overall mechanic, right?
Yeah,
Like you want to, this thing needs better decks or something like that.
Yeah, that's technically homebrew, but
we're getting
small enough of a tweak that you could call it a reskinning, if you will. But for me, reskinning or reflavoring is like you're leaving the mechanics completely intact the way it was, and you're just changing the look. And the closest for me and that you'll get to changing a mechanic is maybe changing cold damage to fire damage. Because you're not really changing much there. You're just, again, you're reflavoring it. You're giving it a different spice than what it had before. You're taking that garlic out. You're putting in oregano. So, what in your experience, what have you most commonly reflavored?
Mostly creatures. Like for combat.
Yeah, I think that's the most common one. I think it's almost unavoidable, quite frankly.
I mean, yeah, you could go vanilla. I personally don't like going totally vanilla. I like D&D, which is, my take on this is like, I want to play D&D. I just want to play my version of D&D, which is like, dude, you guys took the time to make these mechanics, and they're really sound. I like them. I like rolling the D20 and letting it decide our fate. And I like how the damage die work and everything like that. I do think there's a lot of balance in this game. I haven't found anything totally unbalanced yet, but I haven't explored too deeply. Yeah. But what I really like is like, well, I like the mechanics of this creature, and I like the damage, like the challenge rating. It's all good. I'm not in a place in the story where I have like a fucking giant serpent or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I don't want a giant serpent. I want a giant hawk. I don't know.
The first thing I did was I was like, oh, the Hellhound is really cool, but what if it had fucking 3 heads? And I added added the what's that fucking thing that Hercules kills? God damn it! Why do I always do this?
The Hydra.
The Hydra. I was like, okay, it'll take turns with its heads, like it'll take turns with its heads.
Okay, so that was a little bit of Reflavor, also a little bit of Homebrew.
Yeah,
and you'll find they go hand in hand, and a lot of times when you do one, you'll do a little of the other.
Yeah, and it's not that particular mechanic is not hard to just like plug into this monster. So
I would say
like,
not.
Extra
not
attacks, cool.
Exactly. Boom. That's the thing monsters get in general throughout 5th edition. So
yeah, let's just put some salt on this bad boy.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, monsters. I definitely think that monsters are the most common. And like I said, it's almost unavoidable because of the limited amount of monsters in the monster manual, which is not me knocking the monster manual. I fucking love the 5th edition monster manual. It's the best monster manual I've ever fucking seen. But that being said, like there's only so many pages.
It doesn't have everything.
Like, yeah, like there's only like 5 Fey monsters. What the fuck am I going to do if I send you to the Feywild? No, I got to reskin shit.
Yeah, if you're going to go into the Fey and you're only ever going to see the same 5 things in the Fey, it's going to get redundant. So you're going to want to go out there and like use your brain.
Yeah. And not just the limited kinds of monsters, but like the limited CRs. Like it's like I said in fourth edition, what was cool was you could take almost any monster, whether it be orc or dragon, and there was a version of it for any tier of play, any level basically that you wanted. So you didn't really need to reskin half as much in 4th edition. I still did constantly, but you really like it wasn't as neat as it is 5th edition. But reskinning is really easy. You just take a monster of the what I do is number 1, I look for the thing that is most similar first.
Yeah, you don't want to kill your players.
Yeah, well, yeah,
like,
that's
unfairly anyway.
It's just like, well, for example, like mobs are the easiest, right? So like, I want my players to fight a bunch of gnolls.
Yeah, sure.
And maybe they're level 1 or 2, and gnolls are a little bit too powerful. Well, lucky for them, I can do one of a few things. But I'll pick something that's kind of close to the same mentality of a gnoll, like an orc, or maybe like some of the more powerful, or like a hobgoblin. That's a good one.
Oh yeah, I like those.
Also in the back there are those. It's like an appendix of their NPC like archetype stat blocks
In the monster manual?
in the monster manual. Yeah, I fucking love that appendix.
Cool.
It's so handy.
I have to take a look at
and
that.
there's like stuff like tribal warrior or like mercenary and stuff like that.
That
Hell,
almost
just
sounds
grab
like it's meant for Reflavor.
Exactly. That's it. Well, it's meant for when you're making an NPC.
Right,
and,
right.
Like you don't want to bother like rolling up a full character sheet.
Yeah, because that can be time
yeah.
consuming.
But with that, like again, like you got a few options.
Ooh,
Mobs
yes,
are,
I'm gonna have to go in there.
yeah, it's great. But yeah, mobs are the easiest. It could be harder when you're talking about like more exotic creatures or like something you totally made up. But yeah, I start with generally what is the closest like thing. Like let's say I want them to battle a manticore. Here we go.
Yeah. Okay.
And
That's the lion head and the wings,
lion
right?
head and the wings and whatnot. Yeah. What I'm gonna generally do is like they'll probably fight the manticore in its cave, so I don't have to worry about fucking flying. And I will look at a lion, which is much closer probably to the CR or the challenge rating that lower level players kind of need to fight, and I will like take those attacks and that HP and that AC, and then I might get a little homebrew and like grab like a snake bite ability from some other creature, from like a poisonous snake, and bam, there's your manticore.
Cool.
A little bit, mostly Reflavor with a dash of homebrew in there.
I did something similar. So the what is it? Not the Goliath, the gargoyle. You guys in one of our last games, you guys fought a couple gargoyles. I basically, well, we had one player miss, so I did I nerfed these gargoyles pretty heavily.
Yeah.
I like flying is an issue for low level characters. You guys didn't really have a way to deal with that. You have like one range character, I think, and I think it's the Bard.
Yeah.
So Bard did really well in that fight because of the range and like it's magic. The gargoyles are resisting the blunt damage and the slashing and stuff, piercing, all that.
Exactly.
I was like, okay, that's fine. Because there's only one person that's gonna. Well, it ended up being two because then like Acid Splash came into play with the rogue, Arcane Trickster rogue.
Oh yeah, that was cool.
That was cool. But basically, like these things were aged, and this is the flavor I put on them. They're aged, and their wings are like decrepit, and
they're
like,
not working as well as they used to.
They could glide. So instead of like running around, they would like just kind of like kind of kick off a little bit and glide around the floor. And I scooped off a lot of their HP because I was like, well, there's going to be a bunch of players, and like I learned early in my DM career that if there's one monster and 5 players, that's a bad news bears, because that monster's going to get flanked and dead real quick. So I was like, hey, why don't I just scoop some HP off this thing, make the attack basically the same, and make 2 of them. And then the players are split and they've got to decide what to do. And these monsters can team up.
You balance the action economy.
Right.
And there you go. Like already you reflavored, you homebrewed. We're all right there, all in just a basic encounter. I think DMs are doing that every day. So again, like homebrew and reflavor is the backbone of this game.
Yeah. I want to present a challenge, but I don't want to. I find like some stuff in the monster manuals a little too powerful.
It can be.
Or
a little too weak.
Yeah, one or the other. So I'm almost constantly like messing with the HP of a monster.
Right, you got to tweak some stuff.
I try not to do it in combat. That's unfair. Like I want to set it before I go into the situation. Yeah. Like I want this battle to take a couple extra turns, so I'll just like pretend this hit didn't happen or whatever.
Yeah, and that can happen. Yeah. That's called fudging the rolls or fudging whatever. And honestly, keep that super sparing.
Oh yeah,
but
I don't like
also
doing that.
That is a tool in your DM arsenal to use when you absolutely need to. If you truly meant for something to be very challenging, and like it's getting stomped so hard it's not even remotely challenging.
Like I fucked up.
Maybe boost it a little bit just to make it slightly challenging. Like Jesus, like
there's no accounting for like.
Player ingenuity, player cleverness.
I mean, you can't account for it. Hopefully you do, but like you're not always going to get it.
Yeah.
So.
And that's okay. Sometimes you want that though. Sometimes you want it to be something that's like scary and they fucking trounce it and like they feel great. You're impressed as a dungeon master and the story changes now.
Yep. And all the NPCs are impressed with that.
Yeah, exactly.
Take this gold, please.
Yeah,
Thank you.
That was amazing. Reflavoring items and traps, I think, is even easier probably than reflavoring monsters because, like, you're literally like, you're usually going to find yourself in a situation where it's like, I want to give them an ice axe, but in the Dungeon Master's Guide, there's only an ice sword. Real easy, right? Like, you're going to change a damage type. You're going to change the way something looks. With traps, like, I would look. It's real simple, actually, with traps. Just look at the appropriate. In 5th edition, they don't have levels. They usually have like levels for traps.
Oh, like a challenge rating,
like almost like a challenge rating. Okay. They don't have that for 5e, but like a pit trap does usually about a D10's worth of damage. Right.
Cool.
So find the traps that are in the Dungeon Master's Guide that are like of the appropriate damage level.
Okay.
And then skin it however the fuck you want, and it's just a damage die and a saving throw. That's it. So just make it up.
That's interesting. I never go into the DMG for traps. I only ever go into like history books or like
that's cool.
Lots of stuff is booby trapped in the real world.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I'm just like, hey, I've heard of this. Like
that's dope.
Like a rope trap, like a net. Like that's super funny to me. Like
oh god,
your players get caught in a net and they get dragged around, or like they get hung by a tree or like whatever, and they're just in a fucking net. Like in Star Wars, that happens in Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
And they're just got to figure out what the fuck to do, and they can't because you're like,
we didn't plan for this.
Yeah, you're like, your limbs are pinned to your body, and you like can't move, and it's like, well, you can't fucking move. What are you gonna do?
Yeah, for the listeners, my character got caught in a fucking net in the last game we played. It was really annoying.
Yeah, and
he went on a fucking murderous rampage.
It all happens. But I just basically like made that up like off the fly.
Yeah, see, and what was cool about that is like it didn't even do damage. It wasn't supposed to. But if I would say like if you're trying to do damage with a trap, which a lot of times you are with booby traps,
right? Again,
just look in the DMG for what does the appropriate amount of damage and has the appropriate DC save, and just reskin it to whatever historical trap that you were thinking of.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's items and traps. Classes and race mechanics, reflavoring. This is the fun stuff for me. I do this shit constantly, all the fucking time.
You come up with some good homebrews for races.
Yeah,
and
they're fun as fuck to do. And for me personally, like oftentimes I will have a character concept that is super fucking cool, and like with the rules as written, I can get like 80% there.
Yeah,
but
that's
like,
cool.
There's that 20% of like of flavor that I just don't got.
It's always something like, I wish it did this.
Exactly.
Right?
I wish that it seemed this way. And what I do is I work with the DM and I reflavor it and I come up with something really satisfying. It's fun. And I think some of the best character stories we got out there, some reflavored stuff. I want to talk a little bit about some like classes or race or class combos that we didn't necessarily homebrew, but we reflavored and it changed everything. I mean, and we talk about this in a lot of our class breakdowns, like in the Bard episode, we talked about the Ink Mage, which was the Bard that rather than use music, he used painting and had a paintbrush for a wand and whatnot. And it's cool. It's fucking awesome. Like,
Hell
he
yeah.
didn't change in mechanics. He just made it look awesome.
Right. It's doing the same things.
Yeah. One time I played in a 4th edition game where we had a player who wanted to be a necromancer wizard. And there is a necromancer class in 4th edition, but it fucking blows. It is horrible. So what he did was he just ran an enchantment wizard and reflavored everything to be necromantic, if you will. So like he had I forgot what the original at-will spell was, but it was like something that caused things to flee or get pushed or whatever. And so what he did was, rather than it be an enchantment that forced them to move away, he had this bag of ghosts that he opened up, and these spirits came soaring out and feared the enemy back, and they all backed up.
Hell yeah.
I'm like, dude, that's fucking awesome.
That sounds
That's
like the
really
turn
cool.
undead for the cleric, but it's an
Yeah.
at will, and 4th edition means exactly that. You do it whenever you want.
Yeah, that's exactly what it means.
Cool.
And that's
It's a fucking
fucking
bag of
awesome. Yeah,
ghosts.
he had a
Hell
bag
yeah.
of ghosts, and I think like one of his other spells, rather than like immobilize somebody like charm or illusion, it literally made skeletal hands pop out of the ground and like grab them by the ankles so that they couldn't move.
Oh,
It's like,
shit.
again, you've changed no mechanics, but you've turned this into something totally different, and it's awesome. I think it's really cool.
Oh, man. You, like, being restrained like that would make me tired.
Oh yeah, that would wear me the hell out.
Let's take a short
All
rest.
right, short rest time.
All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the part of the show where I forgot what we were talking about because we're resting. Let's talk about us now, though. No, let's talk about you guys. We have something special to say about 3 of you out there.
Oh yeah.
Do you want to break it down for us, Will?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have finally drawn to a close our contest where we were giving away, and still are giving away, the 3 custom Hero Forge minis in the ultra detailed plastic, and we have 3 winners.
Hell yes.
And I'm going to announce them. We already announced them on Twitter, and they already know who they are because I've already corresponded with each of them. They are at Starry Night RPG, at Shanzoko, and at Space Seeker 19. These 3 individuals did what they had to do. They tweeted out about the show with the hashtag Dungeoncast, and now they got a mini on the way to them.
Way to go, guys. Congratulations.
Yeah.
And thank you, Will, for running that contest.
Oh yeah,
Very
not
nice.
a problem, not a problem.
Nice thing to do.
I've actually so far we've received 2 of the designs so far, and they're both really fucking cool.
Nice.
That's all I'm gonna say.
I got to take a look at those.
Yeah, they're
I
really
haven't
cool.
seen them yet.
Yeah, you should.
Sweet. Well, thanks to everybody who participated in the contest. You really helped us out by tweeting out a link to our show and hashtagging it Dungeoncast. You can still tweet about the show if you'd like. We would really appreciate it, and it definitely
would.
helps spread the word and gets the show noticed. And I like that. Do you like that?
Yeah, I love that. And
Yeah, we like
you know
that.
what? Yeah, I can't believe I forgot to do that. You're right. Thank you to all the people that did enter the contest, because even though you didn't win, we really appreciate it. So
Yeah, that's it. It speaks a lot to you guys about how many people were tweeting out about the show. Really awesome. Man, dude, the numbers, they just keep climbing. So thank you to everybody who's new to the show that is jumping on for a listen.
Yeah,
Really
welcome.
appreciate you guys too. Welcome. I'm thinking about calling them Dungeon Casters. Is that corny?
or maybe Dungeonites. I don't know.
Dungeon Knights.
I don't know. You know what? I'll put a poll on Twitter.
Oh yeah, cool. I don't know if that's still cool to do.
Fuck it, we're doing it
Yeah,
anyway.
okay, we're doing it. But yeah, thank you guys so much for listening to the show. We really appreciate you making it to this part. You can find us on SoundCloud.com/thedungeoncast. You can find us on YouTube. Just search Dungeoncast, will come up. All of our shows will be up on whatever podcast app you decide to find us on. But if you are finding us on iTunes podcast service, please give us a rate and subscribe. That really helps the show get some traction, get noticed. And we really appreciate it. Any kind of feedback you got, constructive criticism, that'd be really awesome. And yeah, I just can't say how much we appreciate you guys. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you guys make this possible. Thank you.
Did I miss anything?
No, I think we're good, and I'm excited. Let's get back to the show, man. I didn't
rested.
even need this short rest.
Oh shit!
Yeah, I did this for you.
You're rolling. Fuck! I took too much damage. All right, let's go back
to the show. got a little bit left to talk about when it comes to Reflavor before we dive into Homebrew. I want to talk about reflavoring class and race mechanics because that's some of the most fun shit you could possibly do. And I'm gonna talk about two of my favorites that I've ever come up with.
Cool.
I've come up with a lot. My first one that I want to talk about is a Bard character, which I should have brought up in the Bard episode, but I forgot because when we do an episode, I got so much going on in my head.
We're
I
just
can't remember
rolling.
it all.
Me and Will are just talking here,
Yeah,
guys.
exactly. So there was a point of time where we, as newer players, me and my group of friends thought it would be so much fun to run an evil campaign, which we will do an episode on running evil campaigns. They are fun and they are cool. They're also a totally different type of challenge and honestly not what I would suggest for your general playing of game. I would do more one shots in that regard.
Yeah, it's like a for fun thing. I feel like every once in a while.
Yeah,
but who knows?
And,
maybe that's what you're about.
Yeah, and so
maybe y'all are evil. I don't know.
Right, and so I wanted to run a leader because this was 4th edition. So I wanted to run the heal support for this evil team. I was like, well, healing is such a altruistic thing to do. Like, how do I spin this and make it evil, or at least make it not good? And I wouldn't say this character was evil, but he was definitely not good. He was definitely a chaotic neutral. And so I like to call him my heavy metal bard. And he was a tiefling, appropriately. And the whole concept behind him was that he went to this bardic university and he was really shit at what he did. He was not good. And he was really jealous of the fabulous Eladrin acoustic players that would score all the chicks.
Yeah, for sure.
And so one day in
they're wearing the shoulder puffs and shit,
exactly.
and they've got the little neck poofs.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know what those are called, but
yeah, but we all know what you mean. He eventually stumbled across a book in the corners of the libraries of his college, and it was a book of dark ritual. And long story short, in his fit of jealousy, he sold his soul to Asmodeus for rock and roll. Asmodeus gifted him a heavy metal guitar.
Hell yes.
Which I just called an arcane powered electric guitar because in their world they don't know what a fuck electric guitar is.
Built-in amplifier.
And I think I refluffed him so that he was basically a hybrid of the warlock and bard class because you could hybrid classes in 4th edition.
Cool.
And so I made it so that he had this long 80s style hair and like
glam band.
Yeah, exactly like a glam band. And I dumped his strength for mechanical reasons, but what I wanted him to look shredded. But it was all just the glamour, and he was just weak and scrawny as fuck. So he's shredded. He's got this 80s hair. He's got the horns.
That's really, really funny.
He dressed in black leather with studs and the combat boots and whatnot, had the electric guitar. And all his spells he would just shred and
fuck yes.
I named him Bartimaeus S. Preston Esquire, which is that's a reference to Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
Nice.
And I had him talk dude, yeah, totally, bro. I got this, man.
That's funny. That's how I was picturing the other bards talking at before you sold your soul.
Yeah, and he just became one of them. And
cool.
And for all his healing powers, I would have him sing cheesy classic rock lyrics, I don't know, "We Are the Champions." And
right
stuff
on.
like that
Cool.
to inspire his allies.
Nice.
And Bartimaeus S. Preston Esquire, my favorite bard I ever ran. It was a lot of fun.
Fucking
it was a lot
awesome.
of fun.
If you haven't listened to the Bard episode, it's pretty good. It
was fun.
It actually dropped the day we were recording this.
Yeah, absolutely. My other favorite, and probably my most favorite reflavoring ever done is actually the character I'm running in your game right now. It's not the first time I've ran him. It's actually the second I ran him in an old game. And I took the paladin and I've changed it into an infernal hell knight, if you will.
It's really cool.
A lawful evil version of the paladin. And there's not too much reflavoring here. There's mainly two things that I can think of off the top of my head, or three things. The main thing is that I've turned the oath thing. It still exists for him. D'Artagnan Bloodthane still has to make the oaths of his oath pact or whatever. But I'm treating it more like a sorcerer bloodline. It's
cool.
It's the oath of his bloodline,
right?
And so it's like
Assassin's Creed style. It feels like a little bit to me.
I've never played that game, so I don't know.
So you go into an animus kind of thing where you relive. Because have you heard of the thing where your genetics will carry on memories for you, to your children and shit?
Yes.
It's basically taking that idea and being you could relive this shit.
Oh, right.
And be that person and understand them and stuff. So I like the idea that your ancestry is like genetically coming out like in a magical sort of way to like speak to you and empower you to like, here are our powers. Like it's really fucking cool. That's some flavor right there.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I just reflavored the source of my power, not any of the mechanics.
I think we're going to ride that, by the way. Like we're definitely going to do that, like for your character. If you're into it. Yeah,
I'm into it. I'm super
also
into it.
Also play Assassin's Creed. You have a PlayStation, right?
I do.
Really? I don't know what the most recent games are like, but really good game.
I'll have to check it out, dude. My Pokemon trip has been so hard lately. I got no time for shit else. But anyways, other things I reflavored about him was, well, to make him more infernal, all his radiant powers have become fire powers.
Yes.
I thought about doing fire or necrotic, but I'm like, that's not fair to just have a choice between two.
And I like the
when
fire.
It's appropriate.
Like,
I think we're going with all fire. It
kind of speaks to like your character's like passion. And
like, his disposition is generally fiery. He's a fucking jackass. I think the last thing I think of off the top of my head that I reflavored for him was the lay on hands ability is a healing power, and he's a very not nice guy. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't think of any way outside of like straight up homebrewing a different feature, which I didn't want to do.
Yeah.
So what I did was I reflavored the lay on hands where that if
that's like a D6, right?
No, the way Lay on Hands works is it's a pool of HP I can gift however I choose.
Oh, is that how that works?
It's 5 times my paladin level. So we're level 3 now, so I have 15 HP I could give out.
Nice.
Per rest? Per long rest, I think. Cool. So I reflavored his Lay on Hands works the same, mechanically speaking, but the way I have it work in game is like it's physically fucking painful. And basically when he heals, whoever or whatever he's healing is reliving the pain in reverse.
Yes,
and exactly. The wounds it's almost like he's reversing time on them, on their body.
That's really fun to, like if you do that to an NPC, it's really fun for me to be like, ah!
Yeah, exactly. And I also like, and I do some things with him character wise where like he refuses other people's heals and he'll only heal himself when he needs to because it's part of his like his way of living is if I'm weak enough to need healing, I need to be strong enough to fucking endure it kind of deal. Because he's all about being strong and shit.
Eat these heals right now.
Yeah. So enough about me. Enough about me and my genius. In my genius. I'm kidding. I'm not, but it's fun stuff. Let's talk about you. Let's talk about some of your homebrews or reflavors, and then we'll jump into homebrew.
I'm gonna start by talking about how I straight up did not do that. For my very first character, I went with a very standard from the book. I've talked about it on the show a lot because that's the most experience I had being a player is an Air Genasi fighter. And it's a battle master just going the standard route mechanically, but like all of the flavor comes from like who I make this person out to be, which is like the heart of character development. I feel like you don't want to make like the same character over and over again. You don't like, oh, my fighter should be like like the knight stereotype or like, he's more like a brawler, like a swashbuckler, like, and they do, like the most flavor I put on it is like, they like to do parkour because it's fucking awesome. Yeah. And I love to imagine people doing parkour. But once I stepped away from like, that was me getting to know the game and like getting to know the mechanics and what's possible. Yeah. So I did a lot with the role playing aspect, but what I'm doing now, which was me and Will did a 4E game recently, and it was a lot of fun. I had a really good time, and part of it was because we came up with this really fucking awesome character. Oh, yeah. You say you came up with it. Well, I mean, you gave me the tools to come up with it, I guess. So, and it was a collaborative thing. All the players that were at the table, including the DM, were going to get together and talk about what would be fun to run in a game. Like, what would be fun at the table. And I think that's a good conversation to have. Like, I agree. Especially with 4E where it's like, you can be a defender or a striker or this or that. Right. So I made a dwarf named Giselle Strongbear, who I took the wild shape abilities that druids get. And in 4E, they're pretty cool. I just said it's morphin time every time I did it. Yeah, you did. But I wanted to become a bear. But as I thought about it, I was very inspired as a young man by this tattoo I saw on one of my friends. It was a very like realism tattoo of the body of a grizzly bear. And like right about the neck, the lower neck, it starts to turn into a great white shark. so I was like, hey, wouldn't that be fucking awesome? And I said, fuck yeah. Hell yeah, absolutely. So my female dwarven druid turned into a bear shark. Yes. And mechanically it wasn't
It was the
different.
same.
It was
Yeah,
the same
everything's
exact
the same, yeah.
stats and stuff.
It
but
was
it was
fucking hilarious.
Yeah, it was really cool because like I had like this grappling thing. I would like bear claw this person, and then I would start to like bite them with the shark's head.
That's fucking so funny.
It would take a couple turns to get to the bite. Like you got to grapple, then and that does damage. Next turn, you got to start biting them.
Yeah.
So
I think my
really
favorite
fun.
part of your Bearshark was when like you got your kill and you went into like a shark blood frenzy and you just started eating the dude. And they're like, oh shit. And then like they couldn't stop you, and then afterwards you transform back into a person, and then you start vomiting the dude.
Yeah,
out
like my
'cause
stomach
it's
is
so
still
gross.
full of like people, a humanoid. I
Jesus.
just started vomiting everywhere.
I was like, this campaign took a dark turn real fucking quick. What the fuck, dude?
Giselle is volatile and decisive, and that's not necessarily great all the time.
So yeah. Yeah, no, it was great. It was awesome. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, definitely.
And
cool.
yeah, reflavoring, like literally, you change no mechanics, but you turn it into a whole new thing, and that's what reflavoring is, and it's a lot of fun. That being said, I kind of want to touch real quick on your original character, who was just rules as written. He was also great and a lot of fun, and I think you're right. Like it's the character concept that's most important, not all the flavor.
Yeah, flavor is good, and reflavoring as opposed to homebrewing is very safe because the mechanics are still in place.
Right.
My Bearshark, it seems like it should be more powerful. It's not though. It doesn't have to be, and and we don't want to break the rules. You know, we don't want to ruin the balance that's going on, or like be more aggressive mechanically than another character, and like make that person be like, well, I can only do this, and that guy's a Bearshark. And I am a Bearshark.
Yeah, that's true. Okay. Speaking of not wanting to do that, let's do that and homebrew.
Yes.
All
Okay.
right, let's talk about homebrew. We're fuck the rules. We're homebrewing. So 5e is, in my experience, the easiest addition to homebrew almost anything compared to previous editions. They make it so easy. In a lot of cases, like the tools are literally in the Dungeon Master's Guide. Like it's easy as pie to homebrew background. They give you the tools to do monsters. They kind of give you the tools to do races a little bit. And there are some cool online sources to do that. But let's start from the top. We're going to do this in order of ease.
Yeah. That's
backgrounds. Backgrounds is real simple. One of my problems with 5e is that backgrounds, there's not enough of them. And like,
they're not as general or versatile as like the real world.
Exactly.
There's how many are
there's
there?
like 12.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then if you get Skag, which here it is.
Yeah. The Sword Coast Adventures guide.
Yeah.
For anyone that doesn't know what Skag is.
Exactly. But if you get that book, I mean, there's like another 10 maybe. Which sounds like a lot, but like honestly, the ones in the Skag aren't super usable unless you're running them in Forgotten Realms because they're very specific. And I find that I want to homebrew my backgrounds all the time. And luckily, it's easy as hell. All you got to do, just pick 2 skills that are appropriate for the background that you're creating. Pick either one tool proficiency or language that is, again, appropriate for your background. And then the hardest part is coming up with the feature, which what I like to do is either take a feature from another background and maybe reflavor or tweak it to be appropriate. Or if that's not possible, it's not too hard to come up with one of your own.
It just has to make sense.
Yeah,
right?
I think, it just has to make sense. And I think in the interview we did on Join the Party, we did one on the fly. We did Fey Touched, which I'm trying to remember now. It was like the skills we chose were nature and insight. Nature for when you're lost in the Fey, having to like find food and survive, and insight to avoid all the illusion and bullshit that is trying to fucking kill you.
Right.
And then we didn't choose a tool, but I thought about it, I was like, oh, you don't need a tool. Pick up the language Sylvan, because everything there speaks Sylvan, so you had to learn some Sylvan while you were stuck in the Feywild. And then for the feature, we just took the Horizon Walker feature from Unearthed Arcana, where you could find like it was easier for you to find portals to other planes of existence. We just took that and tweaked it a bit so that like after you found your way back, it's now very easy for you to find Fey and Shadow crossings. And like it just as a feature, you're like if you're given 24 hours time to research and look around, if there's a Fey or Shadow crossing within 5 miles, you will find it.
Nice. That's really cool.
Bam, background done. And we did that. Like I think we did that in 30 seconds.
Yeah, you ripped that shit out like on the fly.
Yeah,
I was like, oh fuck.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
backgrounds are easy. Backgrounds are easy. And they're a lot of fun. And oftentimes, like I haven't like done it for any character yet, but I don't play a lot of characters. I'm a dungeon master most of the time.
Yeah. Does your background? I think with that Fey touched, it also implied that you have like maybe the pointed ears thing going on, or like something else. Does a background usually have that kind of flavor? Like in with it? That's usually a race thing.
Oh well, okay. So we came up with the background, but honestly, I think we mislabeled it. It shouldn't be Fey touched. The background should be like
Fey tuned,
like Lost in the Fey.
Okay.
Or Fey Lost or something, because the background is like as a young person you got lost in the Fey for a very long time, and then you found your way back.
Cool.
That's your background.
And only a day went by.
And only a day went by. Yeah, there we go. Oh, God, that's horrible. 5 years.
Gone.
So let's move on from backgrounds. Let's talk about monsters.
Right on.
Consider Reflavor first. I'm kind of going to say that for a lot of these. Always consider Reflavor first. It's just easier. It's just going to save you time.
Yeah, like we said earlier, it's safe.
Yeah. That being said, there are, as a dungeon master, there are times where I always homebrew. And that's when I'm developing a serious villain, boss battle, or big bad evil guy. And always for my big bad evil guy. Some of the other ones maybe not so much, but my big bad evil guy or girl, my BBEG, I will my BBEG will always be homebrewed. And luckily with 5th edition, like the rules are right there in the Dungeon Master Guide, and they're great. They literally give you a chart which based off the CR, the challenge rating you're looking for, it has suggested AC range, HP range, DC, like save DC range,
nice.
Damage output range, and what I like it too because it's a range, so you can kind of decide whether you want this to be easy or hard, where you want your BBEG's weakness or strength to be. Right That's an official acronym, by the way. I didn't make up BBEG.
Oh shit! Yeah. Have not heard that.
Yeah,
I believe you.
Yeah, we're gonna do a BBEG episode.
Oh, cool.
And so you got this wonderful chart, and even better than that, there's another chart in the book that has a list of every ability or every like monster feature that's out there.
Cool.
Like everything
really
from
cool.
like dark vision to like pack tactics to everything. There's a whole chart. So you can just look at that chart and like apply what you want. And not everything that you want is going to be in there, but I mean, you're going to get yourself 80% there just by using these charts.
Yeah.
And then after that, you just fucking make it up.
That's the homebrew thing, is like you don't have to do everything and you don't have to do anything.
Yeah, absolutely. So, homebrew monsters. Have you done it? Have you done that yet?
I haven't really. No.
You just reflavored, right?
Yeah,
Reskinned?
I mostly, just because I'm so, I'm not, at this point, I'm not so unfamiliar with the mechanics of the game, but I do trust the game mechanic.
Right.
And I don't want to do anything too rash right now.
Yeah,
it's
I understand
we're all in a learning phase, and we're in the first part of our campaign and this and that. So
yeah.
I
You
try
haven't come
to
up yet.
yeah, I try to stick to it. I think I am going to get into that for sure. I don't see a way around it at this point.
Right.
Or what I want to do, cuz like it's all about like what you want.
Right.
You got to sit down with your players at the table and talk about what this is and what are we trying to do, because if you're trying to run an evil campaign, you got to like draw the line somewhere and figure out what's what. And that's where the homebrew can step in and really like help spice up the game a lot, I feel like. So like, are we going to talk about the Ranger homebrew?
We will a little bit.
Okay.
I got one more thing to say about monsters, unless you got something to add.
No, because I haven't really created a monster. I know I'm going to get there. I mostly just reflate. Right now, there's a lot of ghosts and stuff, so I'm reskinning stuff to be ghosts.
Right.
You know.
And yeah, reskinning is like I said. Consider Reflavor first here, because 99% of the time it's just going to work out better. One last thing when it comes to monster traits, you got this whole list in the Dungeon Master Guide, just like I said, and you'll maybe want to make up some of your own. One place I would look if you're interested in doing this, I highly recommend it, is 4th edition had some cool mechanics that you can just easily tag on to 5th edition monsters, and I would definitely use these on my BBEGs or my big boss fights of dragons. As a matter of fact, use dragon as an example. Dragons in 4th edition had auras about them. Like if you had a red dragon, there was an aura of heat around them. And
yeah,
if you
for sure.
ended a turn within 5 to 10 feet of them, you took 5 fire damage. Just no save, no nothing. I would consider giving an enemy aura of some kind that either maybe does some damage like that, or maybe causes some sort of status effect, or at least forces a save, at least
For sure.
for fear, or forces a save for like stun or paralyze.
That reminds me of Ocarina of Time, when you go into Death Mountain and you're in that temple or whatever, and you have to wear the fire tunic.
Right, exactly.
Otherwise, you're just taking damage walking around.
Exactly. Another cool thing, a cool trait you could tag onto any monster is in 4th edition, there was a mechanic called being bloodied, which means that you are now, if you became bloody, it means you've dropped to half HP or lower.
Right.
And a lot of monsters and even some player characters had some abilities or powers that could trigger off of being bloodied.
And there were other stuff that players could do. Like if you're bloodied, I know our what was Freeland's title? Like
Warlord.
Yeah, his Warlord would like heal better if you were bloodied.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, for sure.
So what you could do is like a real simple thing you could do is like, well, this thing goes into a blood frenzy when it gets bloodied, so it like immediately, no matter what's happening, makes 2 attacks.
For sure.
Yeah, it's just like, whoa, shit just got real.
Yeah, man.
So
and I'm already at half or less. Like that's bad.
Exactly. This thing just got 2 free rounds.
That's like the opposite of when Mega Man bosses go to half health and they start doing like extra shit. They like mess up their pattern.
Yeah.
Oh man.
So those are things to consider. Let's move on to the next hardest thing, races. Homebrewing a race.
It's a little tricky.
It is a little tricky, and I would really, really consider reflavoring at this point. If
There's
you can.
a lot of races.
That being said, I have homebrewed, and there are, like you said, there are a lot of races, so you can kind of find something and just reskin it. It shouldn't be too difficult, but sometimes you just can't reflavor it quite right.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, they're like if you think about it, all the humanoids, they're all like reskins of each other, more or less. I mean, they're all humanoids,
right? Yeah, that's a good point. So I've only done this once with 5th edition so far. There's a really cool Google Doc that really makes it easy. And if I can possibly remember, I will try and link it in the description below, guys.
Right.
And if I forget, maybe someone tweet at me and I'll remember. But I did it with Shadow Kai because they don't exist. And they're one of my favorite races for 4th edition. I think they're dope as fuck. And nothing I reskinned was quite there. I mean, honestly, I could have just reskinned the Eladrin from the DMG, but the Eladrin is a really weak. The only reason the Eladrin works is because the elf main race is pretty powerful. So the Eladrin sub race off of it is okay.
Okay.
But just taking the Eladrin and reskinning it would have been too weak. So what I did was I took some things. What I did was I started by looking at the race closest to what I wanted, which was the Eladrin because of their teleportation.
Yeah,
they get that Misty Step.
Super handy.
Yeah, super handy. And it's also Shadow Kai. It's what they do.
Yeah.
They have their Shadow Jaunt. So this is what I came up with. And I picked ability scores that were that made sense for the race. The Shadow Jaunt, I ripped that from Eladrin and reskinned it. I decided to do a kind of a tiefling thing where tieflings resist fire. I gave Shadow Kai the resist necrotic, and then I gave them a stealth proficiency. Because I think it's is it elves? No, elves get a perception proficiencies, and orcs get just an intimidation proficiency. And Shadow Kai are so naturally sneaky and shadowy that like stealth is just second nature to them.
Right.
So +2 to Dex, +1 to Wisdom, Shadow Jaunt, resist necrotic, auto proficiency in stealth. Bam, race is done. Like it wasn't that
they make
hard.
great rogues.
Yeah, and I think the Shadow Kai is pretty balanced. It's definitely on the more powerful end of the balance, but it's not overpowered as far as I'm concerned.
I feel like it's one of the best rogues for sure.
Like, it makes a great rogue, and you know,
like oh shit, like this rogue is going off right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And they should be. It's a Shadow Kai. It should make a great rogue. I'm trying to think about anything else that would pertain to race reflavoring. That's all the experience I have. I will try and link that Google Doc because what's cool about the document is it breaks down all the available features that races have in this game, and it attributes them a certain score. And basically, you want your race to fall within a final score of like 6 to 7.5. 6 being the weakest, 7.5 being like we're getting really strong. Like an elf falls on a 7.5 on that scale.
For
and
sure.
I think like I think one of the weaker races, I can't think of what they are, fell at like 6. And basically, it's like create your own. You can like mix and match and do stuff and create your own race, and it's a really cool tool.
Right on. Okay.
Okay, classes.
Yeah.
Really, really, really consider Reflavor here first.
Yeah, I mean the class system. It is a system.
Yeah, I've only technically homebrewed a class once. It was the Ranger, and quite frankly, it wasn't even mostly my work. I worked with the original PHB Ranger, both of the UA revised Rangers, and the UA Ranger that had the spellless Ranger. And I work with some other homebrews that did their own revised Rangers, and I used all of those, tried to create something balanced, and then even then I did come up with some of my own features. Like I gave one of the things that for me when it came to the Ranger was that the spellcasting Ranger doesn't vibe with me very well. It's not how I picture my Ranger,
right?
And I wanted to supplement some of that like damage output and utility that the spells give the Ranger, and by taking that away, I got to figure something out. So one of the things I did was I gave the Ranger the ability to make poisons and poultices.
That's super
like,
cool.
Yeah, and so like they could make X amount of poultices and apply those for healing, and X amount of poisons and apply those for weapons for extra damage.
Yeah, put it on your sword, put it on your spike chains,
Exactly.
put it on your arrows.
Yeah, exactly. And if anyone's interested in that, tweet at me and I'll send you a link to it. I think it's fairly balanced. We've played with it for a while. It was really cool
to play with. Like,
yeah,
I was randomly getting a poultice, and I was like, yes, heals.
Yeah, it was cool. It was cool.
As I've said before, a little bit of healing in 5e goes a long way.
Right. And if anything, it was still underpowered. Like it was just better than
and you left some
OG
ritual
Ranger.
casting on there, right?
That was one of the most out of the box things that I did do was I gave them ritual casting without spell casting. And so because of that, I was left with a weird situation where I had to give them like a spell list, but they're spellless. So I had to give them a ritual list. And then I had to go through all the Ranger spells, find all the ones that were rituals, apply those to the list. It wasn't long enough, so I had to go through other classes spells that were rituals that I felt fit, and then I applied those, and it still wasn't really enough. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to pick like 2 spells that technically aren't rituals,
turn them into
and
rituals,
say like you can cast these as rituals.
So basically, that means this takes an hour.
Yes, exactly.
And you can sit there and chill for the hour, and then this effect happens.
Yeah, and the reason that I wanted the ritual casting thing is like I kind of picture Rangers under a certain amount of mysticism, and I figured if they do have magic, it's not the spellcasty blastery magic. It's the kind of the esoteric kind of weird communal with nature, and then like it's the kind of magic where it's like, did the spell work or is this happenstance? That's the kind of vibe I want from the Ranger magic.
I think you landed on the mark with that one.
Cool, thank you, man. Yeah. That means a lot. And it's the only time I've done that. But if I were to approach homebrewing, this is what I would do when it comes to classes. Step 1, you need to decide whatever the fuck it is you're creating that doesn't exist in the player's handbook. What does it fall under? Is it a full caster? Is it a half caster? Or is it a non-caster? And dear God, don't pick third caster. Like 1/3 caster, I'm not even fucking with that right now.
Oh shit.
Yeah, because that's subclass shit, and I'm not fucking with that right now.
All right.
So what I would do is I would pick a full caster that's appropriate, that's the most like what I'm trying to make, and then I would take a look. You know how you have those class blocks where it shows you like their progression?
Yes.
I would take those and I would use those as templates.
Okay.
Like I would match those ability score locations.
Right.
I would look at the features they're getting at certain levels, and then I would have to homebrew my own features that are on the same level of whatever. My personal opinion, the best full caster to use as a template is a sorcerer. I feel like it's very general compared to some. Like I would not use the druid, which has like beast
very
form and a bunch of other shit.
Yeah.
I would not use the warlock at all ever, because that's a very bizarre and weird thing.
Yes.
So the sorcerer I felt was like more generic, and also like the reason I wouldn't choose wizard is because the wizard is so, it's just all about spells.
Yeah.
It's almost too bland to use as a template.
It's about that vanilla D&D magic, like the magic that you familiar with in the game.
Yeah. For a half caster, I would use paladin. I think the paladin is the perfect half caster. more so than the Ranger, it really does a fucking amazing mix of both magic and like ability to fight in combat. And I like the whole concept of burning spell slots as a feature for other shit. Your Divine Smite in that case.
Yeah, really cool.
The main thing I think of when I would like homebrew halfcaster would be like if I wanted to do like a elemental blade like warrior.
Cool. Really cool, actually.
Yeah, that's something I would do. Third caster, no. Non-caster is a little weird because you kind of have the fighter and the rogue. They're both non-casters, are both drastically different. So depending on what you're making for a non-caster, I would just choose one of those as your template.
Right.
After that, decide your HP, what's appropriate. If it's a full caster, it's going to be a D6 or a D8. If it's a half caster, it's going to be a D8 or D10. If it's going to be a non-caster, it could be anything from a D8 to a D12, depending on what it is you're making. After that, pick your 2 proficiencies. Is it 2 proficiencies? Is that what? Let's see. You get your 2 saves. Pick your 2 saves.
Okay.
Pick your weapon and armor proficiencies that are appropriate. Like again, if you're making a non-caster physical warrior of some sort, like it's probably going to be like strength and con or something for their saves. And they're probably going to get most military weapons for their proficiencies. Come up with a skill list that makes sense for whatever they are. If you're trying to make the Avenger from 4th edition, like you're going to give it like religion and stealth and intimidation and sleight of hand, maybe. I don't know.
Okay.
It's kind of a religious assassin kind of deal.
Okay, I see.
After that, features. Good fucking luck. Like that's on you. Like I can't help you there. All I can say is look at whatever class you're using as a template and go from there.
Get creative.
Get creative with it. Like this is, if you're doing this endeavor, it's an endeavor.
Yes, and you're shouldering this burden.
Yeah.
You got to come up with something.
And
right?
that being said, it's rewarding as hell. That being said, I don't plan on doing it again unless I desperately need to. I want to talk about classes not to use as a template for the non-caster or half-caster, depending on how you want to fucking look at it. The monk. Do not use the monk. The monk is not like any other class, and it's got a bizarre amount of features because of its lack of both its lack of spells and lack of like fighting style and a lot of proficiencies and whatnot. It's just got this bizarre amount of featers.
I don't know shit about the monk. I'm really glad we're doing the next episode should be the monk.
Yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't use the cleric for a full caster either because it again,
it's very, very specific.
It's very specific.
When you're a healer and you're normally religious.
Yeah. That being said, do whatever you want.
I mean,
it's your homebrew.
You're homebrewing it. If you figure out something cool that works, do it. That's the whole bit.
Yeah, and these
are just recommendations.
Yeah, these are just recommendations. This is how I would do it. So I hope that this is helpful to like someone thinking about doing this or maybe wanting to do this but not knowing how to approach it.
Yeah, maybe you need a jumping off point. Yeah. This might be that for you and you need some ideas or like maybe you like something that Will was talking about but you have this other idea. Oh, I would do this though. And there you go.
Yeah,
we hope we helped you, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. And that being said, I think I'm all out of material. I got nothing left to say about Homebrew and Reflavor except for go out there, guys, make it zesty. Make it tasty.
Make it eat good. That good mouthfeel.
Yeah, there you go.
Let's call it a game.
All right. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you guys later.
See ya.